Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and I'm here to take some listener questions for the first time in about a year, I think.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
It has been that long.
I know, it's great. It's becoming like unintentionally like an annual thing, you know.
See, I could have sworn we were doing this twice a year.
we could, I think it's fun. We could do it twice a year.
I mean, we just would have to remember to do it.
Yeah. And also we're going to talk about some of our favorite and least favorite films of the year so far. This is our little sort of mid-year roundup episode, and I've got three of my wonderful colleagues here to help me sort it all out, starting with Maxwell Meyers! How are you, Max?
I'm doing jazz hands. You can't hear them. I'm so tired.
Back in the old days, you could have seen them. Although it would have been like a wide shot. And
back in the day with those movies before talkies came around.
Back in my days, you know, we didn't have no talking.
Well, we're off to a good start, and clearly I'm tired because this is getting weird already.
That's just 2018. I'm tired.
We should start a campaign. Hashtag I'm tired. 2018.
Hashtag 2018.
So I'm going to talk about this in my end of the year list, but there's a Sam special called Hannah Gadsby's Nanette.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good. It's on Netflix. Go watch it. And she talks about gender identity. She says, I identify as tired. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's my cue to say the man whose voice you're hearing is Mo Shaunette.
Hello.
Mo, how are you? And do you want to tell us about Boots Riley?
I'm hanging in there. Boots Riley he's a sharp fella.
You met him, right?
Met is a strong word.
Did you watch him talk?
I did see him talk.
I've met a lot of people too then.
He did a Q&A at our theater. I work at a movie theater. We're showing Sorry to Bother You. He was there to do a Q&A. He's a dude who has a lot to say and wants to say it right. So he talks real slow and real long. But he's a sharp guy. He knows what he wants. He knows the ideas he wants to get across, and I'm interested to see where he goes from here, both in terms of his music and his movies. Because now I'm starting listening to The Coup, which is his group, and it's good stuff.
Right on. Patrick, we have Patrick Belin here.
Hello. I'm here again, running on 4 hours of sleep this time, but I shall power through it.
What were you doing?
Trying to survive the heat wave, I suppose.
Yes.
Amongst other things, so.
Hashtag 2018, yeah. I'm tired.
Hooray, climate change.
2018 summer, I'm hot.
Not that hot, unfortunately.
Did you slam me? I'm too tired for that, man. I'm not gonna catch it. It's just gonna bring you down.
It's gonna be great. Y'all gonna have so much fun.
It's the battle of the tired. Patrick versus Max.
Who can be more tired?
Whoever falls asleep first wins? I don't know.
I was feeling sorry for myself for only getting 6 hours. You know, I feel like I'm like rolling.
Not to brag, I got 6 hours, but I've been up since 7 p.m. yesterday. We're at 1 p.m. today.
Well, let's dive on in. I want to ask you guys, and I don't necessarily, despite what I said, I don't want to necessarily ask you like your favorite film, you know, what your favorite film of the year is, what your least favorite film of the year is. I just wonder if you could tell me about a movie from these past few months that, you know, really, you know, that you really love, that you look back on it and think, you know, oh man, I'm glad this movie exists. I remember it at least for the moment. And then a movie that, not necessarily the worst movie you've seen this year, but one that like at least rubbed you the wrong way. One where you went, man, you know, this just pisses me off. So, you have the floor, whoever wants to dive in.
I guess I'll go, because I got a full night's sleep.
Well done.
That's how we're doing the order now.
Give the rest of y'all time to compose your thoughts.
That sounds good.
So, for like favorite movie of the year so far, I have a few on my list. There's not a few that have like there are a few that have really just like struck right through the hearts, that have been a lot of fun, a lot of really good, really well put together, and are really interesting to me. And I'm putting together a list of like what would be the one I talk about. There's a bunch of different ones on that list, and they're really distinct from one another. So possible ones I thought about: Black Panther, American Animals, Won't You Be My Neighbor. Like, these are the ones I thought about, but when I woke up this morning and I knew that I was going to come here and talk about it, I think the one I wanted to talk about the most is Sorry to Bother You. Again, it's Boots Riley, written and directed, and he did the score for it. It's tough to describe, partially because like it completely changes genres in the second half. I won't spoil it, because I don't know how many of you guys have seen it.
I haven't seen it yet. No.
But it starts off like the trailers pitch it as just kind of this jokey kind of. He's a black guy who gets a job as a telemarketer, and he starts getting success because he's talking in a white voice. And they explain in the film that the white voice isn't actually him changing his voice; it's changing his attitude and his what's the word I'm looking for?
Perception?
His diction, more like it. Just it's not a they realize it with him talking and the voice of David Cross coming out. But in the movie, that's not meant to be literally what happens. It's just a metaphor. But they describe it as, you're not talking the way they talk, you're talking the way they think they're supposed to talk. And then it starts becoming a metaphor for late-stage capitalism. And...
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't give it away, because where it ends up going is... It both comes out of nowhere, and you can't predict it, but also it fits in with the tone of the movie because everything is so surreal. It's really good. It's really well acted, well written. It's a strong movie. I'd go see it.
I got a friend of mine. Everyone who I've talked to who's seen it has loved it. I mean, it definitely feels like it's the hot ticket right now. And a friend of mine made a kind of an odd comparison. I'm curious to hear if you think this is there's something to this, or if this is totally bonkers. But a friend of mine compared it to RoboCop, like in terms of like the kind of the satire. Is it that kind of like sort of like brash, like really?
It's
intense,
absolutely
satirical?
in your face about it.
Nice.
About what it's not subtle with what it thinks about modern day society and modern day capitalism. Boots Riley, he talks about there are some people who have talked about it as like the first great like anti-Trump film because it targets capitalism so much. And Boots Riley says, I wrote the script in 2012. The problems that were then are still here now. They're just more visible.
Sure.
Like when he was writing it, it was supposed to look kind of post-apocalyptic version of Oakland, where there's like tons of people living on the streets and everything looks dilapidated and stuff. 6 years on, and he's shooting the movie, he doesn't have to change anything. That's just how Oakland looks.
Wow.
Is that there's tent cities and there's rundown shops, and it's bleak, but it's at least somewhat hopeful in the end.
You bring up like the question of like subtlety, and I think like some people have criticized it, have said that like it's criticize it for lacking subtlety, but it also seems like from what I hear, like that's part of the appeal. Like can't like subtlety to a certain degree be a little like overrated?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I mean, we sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
No, I interrupted you, but I was gonna say I feel like a lot of filmmakers do this forced subtlety thing where it just feels so artificial. Like you're just trying to be deep.
Sure.
I don't like that. But I could probably say more, but I won't. But anyway, so I get your point about that.
I think sometimes when you do subtle things, you run the risk of it getting misconstrued.
Sure.
Or
that's always a
or
risk,
missed entirely. But then again, sometimes when it's very blatant, it can rub the audience member the wrong way. I felt that way about Zootopia. I understood what Zootopia was about. I get it. The message is good. But it just felt like I was just over my head with it. I was like, I get it. It's about racism. I was like, and so I was like, I felt like that was too much. And it became a turnoff, so even though I understood the message, I wasn't as accepting to it. It sounds like this doesn't do that, and I think there's probably some great magic, not formula, but like, there's maybe heart there, or maybe it's hitting at the right point, hitting the right notes. I don't know what it is, but I think it's great to hear that. Or sometimes you just, or maybe you just go, maybe the topic is so complex, you need to be hit over the head with it.
I think it's kind of in our current world, it seems like a very easy message to agree with. Like we're a lot of the stuff I hear on social media now, at least from the people I follow, so I admit I'm in, quote, the liberal bubble.
Yes, no, not that!
Yeah, none of us here are liberal at all.
But it's
oh, no.
a lot of people criticizing Jeff Bezos as the head of Amazon. It's like, they're talking about all the stupid things he's doing with his obscene amount of money, and it is like multi-billion-dollar personal fortune. Meanwhile, Amazon, they have factories where people aren't allowed to take bathroom breaks, or they work long hours for low pay. Anytime they strike, they move their factories to a different location. It's very easy to get behind this message of corporations as more or less slave drivers.
Sure.
The other thing is that, like, because it is satirical, you do have to be very specific about it. Like, humor in general, you do need to make sure it hits the target, but especially with satire, because otherwise you're promoting the thing you're trying to speak out against.
Yes.
You know, there's a whole thing on the ethics of satire, but I won't get into it. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna ask, what's the movie from this year that you look upon less fondly?
Less fondly. I wouldn't say this is the one that pissed me off, because I didn't have high expectations for it. But this is probably the worst I've seen, and it's Tomb Raider.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's
that bad.
It is the worst kind of bad movie, in my opinion at least, because it's competent enough that there's not really any big marks about it beyond it's completely unmemorable.
So it's not like fun bad.
It's not fun bad. It's not interesting bad. It's boring.
Because I thought Assassin's Creed was like fun bad. Like that was like so like just like deliriously moronic that I found it kind of entertaining. But this doesn't sound like
it's
that.
not like
I think Screen Junkies definitely. I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it really describe it best when they do honest trailers, which is another channel you could go watch on YouTube after you're done with
the honest the Tomb Raider.
They did the honest trailers Tomb Raider, but they also lumped it in with Pacific Rim Uprising because they said they were so mediocre that they couldn't honestly do an honest trailer for one. But they felt there was enough between the two of them to do one for both of them. and I think that's a really great descriptor of that.
And they had that little voiceover, if you watch these on TV, you'll have an okay time.
But
it sounds like you wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, I actually like Pacific Rim Uprising. I know it's very flawed and very mediocre, but you put a movie where it's giant robots fighting giant monsters and John Boyega's also there, I'm in. Tomb Raider, it's just, you will forget about it 5 minutes after you walk out. There's nothing fresh, there's nothing really game-changing. Alicia Vikander is doing her best, but they have like 3 different ideas of who Lara Croft is as a character, so she keeps like jumping around between what they're trying to pull off.
And this from the screenwriters of Iron Man and Children of Men. Mark Ferguson, Hawk Ostby.
I have a feeling I can see when you watch that movie. You can tell which parts was the Iron Man writer and which part was the Children of Men writer. Because
it's like you look at a bad movie like, and again I am bringing this movie up against Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. It's terrible.
It is so fun,
but at least it's engaging kind of terrible because it's so much bad in one place that it's like, how did this happen?
You can pick it apart. It's like a puzzle at that point.
Exactly. Like Movie Bob did his he does a series called Really That Good where he looks at good movies. He only ever did one episode of Really That Bad, and it was Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and it was 3 hours long. It was like as long as the actual movie.
As long as it sounds like as long as the so-called Ultimate Edition, the R-rated.
But it's Tomb Raider isn't that. It's just there's decent enough like understanding of story structure and editing and direction that it's like no, it's you will pass this time and then 90 minutes of your life is gone and that's it.
Longer if you watch it on TV.
Longer if you watch it on TV, and then they'll try and sell you like I don't know, whatever.
Shaving cream.
Shaving cream, sure. I don't watch a lot of TV with ads anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this: I never wanted to see Tomb Raider, and now I want to see it even less. So
you can add that.
Yeah.
Who else has got a favorite movie and a not so favorite movie?
I think I'm ready while my brain is still working.
All right. Turning on Max's brain.
Okay, so a few of the movies I really like this year, all the Marvel flair. Is it weird? Does anybody else think it's weird that Black Panther feels like it came out so much longer than February?
It does.
Yeah.
It was before Valentine's because everyone was complaining that
true.
they weren't going to release it on Valentine's weekend. They're like, that sounds like a great date night. I was like, I mean, does it? I was like, it sounds like there's going to be some nerds dragging their girlfriends to this movie as much as there is people willing to see this movie. That's the whole other thing. It feels so long ago.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel like a date movie. It's a great movie.
It's a great movie, which if you got on a date and you want to see a great movie, sure, but I wouldn't be like, Valentine's Day, let's go see Black Panther. Like, that's the only thing I want to see. I would.
I would see it on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I think part of it is that Infinity Wars kind of dominated the discourse on superhero movies.
Well, it was a giant splash after. And then you got Ant-Man, which was fun, but also, and then it was like, oh, but by the way, Infinity War, like, oh, fuck, I forgot. At the very least, those movies are fun, and sometimes, and at other times, amazing, depending on which one we're watching. I actually caught Love, Simon recently, and I love
good, right?
It's so
right?
good.
It's
I actually
amazing.
it was part of my big gay scary weekend. I watched Love, Simon, Call Me by Your Name, Hereditary, and A Quiet Place. It was and I'll tell you this.
Is that going to be a thing now? Gay scary.
It wasn't intended. It just ended up happening. I was like, well, I want to see this.
I wasn't sure what you meant when you said that, and then it's like.
It wasn't.
It
wasn't
like
so gay. It was scary. It was just like I watched but then
we need a good mainstream gay horror movie, and then this will be complete.
There we go.
Gay version of Get Out.
Well, Reese wanted to make one for a Blumhouse.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I know that. The Hollywood here in Portland, Oregon has queer horror every month. There's one issue showing. But you're right. It's not.
By the way, I talked to Anthony Hudson, who programs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great. Go see it. But you're right. None of them are really about gay people or gay people in horror situations. It's more like there's a gay character or a gay subtext. It's a whole other thing. But that's besides the point. But I loved Love, Simon. I would say
good.
skip Call Me by Your Name. I think that movie was garbage. Beautiful garbage, but garbage nonetheless. And we're not going to get into it.
No. I agree with you.
Okay, good. I was like, Ben?
Can I go off on a little bit of a tangent?
I don't know how long is this tangent.
It's not that long.
Okay.
It was almost eerie hearing you say that because I've been thinking that for a while. Like, oh man, I know it's not like the hip take, but I think Love, Simon is a way better movie. And no one's gonna agree with me. But it's like Call Me by Your Name. Like it feels sort of like ossified, like this movie, like about these guys sitting around talking about like art and books, and then it's sad at the end. And Love, Simon is like it's this hopeful, it's this radical, very sad, but almost kind of utopian movie. It's like it's
Well,
it's neo John Hughes, but it's
if we're gonna
it's
talk
more satisfying in a lot of ways.
If we're gonna talk about utopian outlooks, I'll just say this about Call Me by Your Name. I'll keep it short. It's set in the 80s. I don't know why. Other than for fashion, nothing about the 80s comes up about it at all. Also, it paints a very idyllic image of a gay couple, which, let's face it, gay men in the 80s is like the worst time to be a gay man. Like, that was when, I don't know if this was right before the AIDS crisis, I don't know when that is, but they had a hard time there. There was a big decade where people did not like them. It was like, it's set in Italy, it's beautiful. I was like, everybody just seems to, like, they're like, we can't tell anyone, we gotta be super secretive, yet everybody seems to know, nobody seems to care. Then what was the point of setting this in the 80s? That's one of my biggest points of contention, was what was the point, other than to maybe go with the 80s style? Someone's like, well, that's when the book takes place. I'm like, again, then the book should have been taking place there.
Maybe they're trying to subvert the reputation of the 80s.
Maybe. I don't know.
There's your subtlety.
I just feel like, I'm like, sure, it would be great. I feel like if we're going to go with it turns out you really didn't need to hide this because nobody really cares and we really just accept you. Set it today. That's a message we want to hear today, because that's not a message that was really given to anyone in the 80s.
Right.
So that's all I'll say about Call Me By Your Name. Love, Simon is actually great for the other reason that it actually feels like a real-life situation that will speak to people today. And even better, young people. Young people who are struggling, who are the most at risk. But even then, I wouldn't even say that's what my favorite movie this year is. I also saw Annihilation.
Oh,
which
so good!
It was absolutely amazing. And when I watched it, all I could think the entire time was, why didn't I see this in theaters? Why didn't I see this in 3D? It is so freaking good. But I would say my favorite movie of the year is actually A Quiet Place so far. Just as a whole. I mean, maybe it's a safe choice. But again, I think we all know I have an affinity for horror at times. And
when I first met you, you'd done like a horror marathon,
a horror
right?
month. Yes, so many movies. So I appreciate it. I was like, I get it. It's fairly easy to watch, and it's a very crowd-pleasing movie, but it's interesting. And it's great to have a nearly quiet film just the whole way. It adds so much to it. Even just without saying things, I'm already stressed for these characters. This is not a spoiler, but Emily Blunt, near the front of the movie, you find out that Emily Blunt is pregnant. Immediately, I am filled with terror. I have never been present for an actual birth, but I know they're not quiet. That's for damn sure. And I'm just thinking, oh God, what's gonna happen? And then I do see what happens, and I think John Krasinski pulls it off.
Oh, yeah.
It's clever. There are things you just don't think about. It's not just the sand that they walk in and no shoes, because shoes and sand makes apparently more sand than bare feet. I don't know. But, just like even how she picks up this pill bottle right at the beginning, she kind of has to like roll it to the side. And you're just like, even before you see these things, you're already like panicked and just like on edge. And I think that's the sign of a great horror movie. I watched this alone in my basement in the middle of the night with the volume turned way up. It was almost the best experience. I think it was good because I didn't have to worry about anyone else except for me.
You know what it reminded me of? When I walked out, it reminded me of the first Alien, and that's the highest praise I could give it. For a first-time director, that's pretty damn good.
I would agree with that. I think you could definitely draw a lot of similarities to that stress. And an unknown stress. I think it's one that you would never ever think of. And I think that's what I'm like, it's clever, but on top of that, it's beautifully shot. The cinematography in it is great. The editing is wonderful. The pace is nice. Again, and this comes back to why I'm loving the horror renaissance right now, is because once again, it's another person going, let's make a horror movie, but let's make all the parts good too. As opposed to, I don't know whatever else was good before. Like, it's like, not only is it scary, but it's also pretty to look at, and it's good to listen to, and oh man, you care about people. It's just a good movie that also happens to be a horror movie, which gives just more accolade and credence to the genre that is forgotten, much like sci-fi. Which is why it's great to get movies like Annihilation, which also stressed me the fuck out.
also a horror movie of a sort.
Exactly. Well, that was even better. Is after my big gay scary weekend on Tuesday, I went and saw a foreign movie called The Cake Maker. It was gay, and then I went and saw. Then at the end of the week, I saw Annihilation, which isn't a horror movie, but let's face it, is very scary. And then, and the entire week I've also been watching an old TV series called Gaycation with Ellen Page.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good.
Is that still on?
It is not still on. It ended in 2016, and it is depressing.
Oh.
Well, it's like both parts depressing, hopeful, and interesting. You know, they did a good job. But
right on.
So,
did y'all see the thing where she took on Ted Cruz?
That's in Gaycation.
Yeah, she climbed over a fence and went into a barbecue and took Ted Cruz to town.
She asked him a bunch of questions, and then immediately afterwards, like, that's going to be all over YouTube.
She's my hero.
She was right, and it was great. And that's in the TV show as well.
That's
it's
awesome.
on. If anyone's wondering where to watch this, I'm watching it on Hulu right now. There's 8 episodes. They're about 45 minutes each. Terribly interesting. It's more about it. I was like, it's not a fun gay travel show. It's more about what it is to be queer in these certain countries. Like, it's not just for, it's like, oh, it's fun to visit these places if you're gay. You're like, but this is more about what it is to be a human living in South America, Jamaica. I'm never going to Jamaica, only because I might die just by existing. I'm not into that. But I digress. So it was. But
I think I can safely say that none of us here want you to die. So please don't go to Jamaica.
At least 3 people in the world don't want me dead. I think
I'm
doing all right.
That makes a difference, right?
My parents were proud of me. You notice I said 3 people, and I said parents, which does not equal 5. I get they love me. But when we get these movies like Annihilation, where they're just, I feel like it strengthens the genre and just goes, we can, like, this is a viable genre that needs to be taken seriously. We want to be taken seriously, and we want to be heard. And I think that's great to get interesting people in there. And I think nobody would have ever expected Jim from The Office to scare us that much. And he did a great job. So I love it entirely.
So what's a bad movie from this year that you want to single out for your signature brand of ridicule?
Oh man, I mean, I was just telling everyone before this. I'm like, honestly, I feel like I've forgotten more movies than I've actually seen this year because I'm like, I can't even remember. But I will say, much like a disappointed father, I'm gonna piggyback on to Mo. I'm gonna go with both Tomb Raider and Ocean's 8.
That's what you were telling me a while back that you didn't like Ocean's 8, right?
See, and this is the thing, real quick to just, again, piggyback on a Tomb Raider. I'll tell you this, I played the game. When they announced a Tomb Raider movie, I was excited. I was excited because in the game, it's about young Lara Croft. She's kind of finding her footing. She's also a scientist. She's always been an archaeologist. That's her from game 1. That's what she's done. She's investigating a mysterious island. She's brought her friend whose family was like a descendant of this princess. They get shipwrecked. It's part mystical and action. They get shanghaied. She has to deal with, makeshifting weapons, dealing with the first person she kills emotionally and how that affects her. She literally drops into a pool of blood, and the entire time she's trying to save her friend while also trying to figure out the mystery. There's actual great feminist roles, and she's a scientist, she's smart, she's capable, she's there to save her friend while also figuring out all this shit, and it's so much fun to play and watch that I was like, of course this would make a great movie. And then they just crapped out this turd, where they took out all the good things about the game, and they were just like, what if she was cool and smart, and she did things to survive? Honestly, the only thing that I actually really appreciated about the movie was they got that one moment when she kills her first person, a human being, and she kind of has to deal with that, like, I just killed a human. But then it goes into survival mode. This should have been a survival movie, and it wasn't.
There's one more good thing about it, though, right?
What's that?
The fact that the director's first name is Roar.
Oh, I was so upset. I didn't even know that. So this is the thing. I didn't have high hopes about this movie because it's still a video game movie. But I feel like they had so many of the things already in place that all they had to do was take them and put them into a movie, and they would have been just fine. And yet somebody wanted to get creative. And I don't even know how. I don't know what they did to get creative. It made me so upset because I was so disappointed that it could have been so easy and at the very least decent. And yeah, the people I went, they had all forgotten we had seen it. If I didn't have this blinding hot white rage towards how cheated, like, again, I mean, disappointed and insulted at the same time. I'm like, like I know you could do better, yet you brought me this. Good lord! But and it made me sad because I also love Alicia Vikander, and I don't know if it was just bad direction, but I even felt like that was just not what she is capable of. Especially after I saw her in Ex Machina by the director of Annihilation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I think we like to think, or at least I like to think that some actors they're sort of bulletproof. That no matter how horrific their surroundings are, they will stand out. But it's just not true.
No.
I mean, in an era, when even Amy Adams has given bad performances, even Leonardo DiCaprio,
Meryl Streep.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
I mean, I would say recently Meryl Streep has given bad performances. Yeah, I'll say it, I'm not afraid of you.
Direction matters, even a legend like Meryl needs, to be molded.
The way these things work in Hollywood culture, right? It's like when you've spent so many years being a starting out younger actress struggling to get by, and then all of a sudden the Hollywood money machine throws a bunch of money at you. It's like kind of hard to say no.
So
that's why these things happen.
I mean, how can you say no to Tomb Raider? I'm sure she got a big fat check.
I'm sure she did. And again,
I think all of them are guilty of that.
I
think it's kind of, you could also argue that the trajectory really is make bad movies because you just got to get out there, but own your craft and do these small movies where you have to be good, and then people take notice, so they throw a bunch of money at you, so you go back to making bad movies. You're like, that was good for a while. Maybe win an Academy Award before they start throwing the money at you as well.
But see, the trick is to not become a junkie that you end up like Nicolas Cage, where he's known for doing bad movies.
Yeah, don't make, again, as I told somebody recently, this is bad. We can forgive you, but don't make a habit of it.
Like he had talent somewhere, but then he became a junkie, and then now he's just bad movies.
I think he still has talent. It's very hard to get that right. It's very hard to get his specific brand right.
I think it's the right role, the right director, and I think it's really the right
whole lot of luck.
Oh yeah, luck. I think luck is definitely part of it. But
well, we should move on to you, Patrick. But first, I do want to say,
you were going to talk about Ocean's 8.
Real quickly about Ocean's 8.
Okay, but before you do that, I do want to say,
yeah.
I think again with the Amy Adams thing, I think she had the right idea because you look at, Batman versus Superman. She was so awful in that. Not through any fault of hers, just it was a bad movie. It sucked the life out of everyone. Yeah, but then a couple months later you get Arrival. I think I think that was the best performance by a woman of that year. And so it's like, well, who gives a fuck about BVS after that? And what she did in Arrival was so, mournful and towering and quietly charismatic that it's like, who cares if you've got some clunkers on your resume, But you wanted to talk about Oceans.
Oh, the reason I'm disappointed in Ocean's 8 is I was genuinely looking forward to this. I thought the idea was great. An Ocean's movie, but with 8 women. I get it. You can't do 11. No one wants to take that kind of a risk.
And besides this way, it can be 8, 9, 10, trilogy.
And honestly, if it's good, yeah, I thought that's a great idea. I'm okay with trilogies, shared universes, and all these other things. Umbrella as much as you want. Just make it good. That's why Marvel gets a pass for most of them. Even their worst movie is still watchable. But, so I'm like, fine, I get it. Trilogy, whatever. But I'm like, this is great. Like, I think there was a comedian that made the argument. It was
John Mulaney.
John Mulaney, who said that an Ocean's movie would never work with a cast of all women. And I hate it because this movie just proved him right. And not because of the women. The women, I felt like they all knew exactly who their character was. That if you threw a question at them, their character could answer. They would know the answer their character would give and they'd be fine. But they were just nothing. There was nothing there for them. It was like, I felt like I still don't know who they are. I feel like they know who they are. I don't know who they are. I still don't even know why Sarah Paulson has a bunch of shit in her garage. I think the idea is that she's buying it and then reselling it. I think. No one ever really confirms that. Sandra Bullock calls it her pastime, and that's it. Like, I think that's, like, again, and I think that's really what the main problem is in the movie. It's like, we're going to give you a thing, but we're not really going to answer it. We're just going to hope you get it. And I'm like, I mean, and I will say, and I think they made, and this is the thing, I was really trying to figure out why this movie was so mediocre, because I was like, the choices sound like good choices, like, let's not make it about Sandra Bullock winning the heart back of a man, but actually just screwing him over for screwing her over. Like, this is actually a revenge movie.
Well, that was actually, I read a great article in the New York Times, like, talking about some of the problems with the movie, and they said one of the problems was that, they had a male villain, and that, the villains in these movies are often the best roles, so it's like, you get a cast of all women, but then you're denying, women a potentially really meaty, like, delightfully evil role, like, they were afraid to, really double down. I think
that would have been great. And also, I think it's just hard because you're watching the trailer. It's called Ocean's 8. Yeah. Then you count out the thieves, and you're like, well, that's 7. So at some point, Anne Hathaway's going to get folded into the mix, which, spoiler, when it does happen, it's really no surprise. And that's actually not even the twist of the movie. But again, I saw it coming. I knew it was going to happen eventually. I just really didn't know how. And, I don't know. I feel like Mindy Kaling wasn't that funny. And how can you put Mindy Kaling in a project and have her not be funny? She got one comedic line, which was somebody, I think it was Rihanna was teaching her how to use Tinder. Someone was teaching her how to use Tinder. And she's like, that was it. That was all I got from Mindy Kaling other than what you see in the trailer. And I feel like, again, in both of these movies, one more anger, but both of them, I feel like a dad, I'm just like, this could have been good, and they were both had such great potential for, lead women, and you've just let that down, and you just set it back again, and now you set back video game movies, you set back large ensemble female movies.
They haven't set back video game movies. Well, video game movies are
they set well, how about this? You're not adding, you're not helping. You're not helping, you're hurting. So, I guess I'm just more I feel just disappointed. I'm just let down because they could have been good.
I will add that we did get a good video game movie this year. We did get Rampage. Rampage is dumb as a sack of hammers, but it is a match. But I did not go there for, intricate plot development or complex characters. I went there to see a giant gorilla wreck a Dave & Buster's, and I got that, and I'm happy.
Honestly, after Annihilation...
If that's not a good review, then I don't know what it is.
After the last week I had, I've been actually trying to figure out a movie. I'm like, I need a palate cleanser. I need nothing gay, nothing scary, and nothing intense, because I need to, watch something dumb and funny.
I'm not sure if it's funny, but it's just, if you want to see giant monsters wreck downtown Chicago...
Maybe. I might. It depends on how much longer this goes. I might need a really big pellet.
If you want to see basically every cast member playing over-the-top versions of their personas, I don't know. It shouldn't work as well as it does, but it does work.
Patrick, please take it.
Okay, let's do this. I'm a little sleepy, but okay.
I know.
Well, my overall sense this year so far, it's been very meh for me, M-E-H, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sleepy. But just a lot of films haven't really caught my attention so much. I think the original exercise was to come up with 5 or something. I couldn't come up with 5. I could only come up with 3 top movies that I would consider top movies. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But, it's not just me, I think. I even have free passes to go see movies, and I do have time to see these movies. So, but so far the offerings haven't interested me. But what's so surprising is that the movies that are slated for the second part of this year is some of the most interesting movies I've ever seen come out in a 6-month period. I'm like, what the F is going on here?
It feels like 2016 again, where the first half of the year was kind of bad, and then all of a sudden it's really stacked in the awards season.
It's like the bean counters see a trend in the computer saying oh, people are more likely to spend money in this later part of the year. Let's save all those for come on, make your programming a little more balanced. Okay, so there's my rant on the state of the year so far. But so the 3 movies that I singled out. Deadpool 2, Black Panther, and Annihilation. Surprisingly, nice. I don't normally really, I'm not a huge fan of comic book movies, but 2 of the 3 are comic book movies, and I really enjoyed those. And plot twist, if the question is which one do I want to talk about most, neither. I think they're all really good movies, but they're not super groundbreaking. I'm gonna really watch them 10 times 5 years from now or something like that.
Sure.
To round out my top 5, I would say the other 2 movies that I do want to talk about are not 2018 releases, but I've seen for the first time this year. And the 2 are T.H.X. 1138, and the other one is The Passion of Joan of Arc, which is almost 100 years old, and it's a silent film.
I've actually seen both of them.
Yeah.
I saw
Alright,
T.H.X. with you, but I saw The Passion of Joan of Arc in school.
They're fucking amazing. I'm not even gonna censor myself this time because they're that good. Like, oh my god, this is real filmmaking, and it probably, and having those 2 next to the other 3, and thinking of what I just said about the year in general, it just kind of compounds my disdain for this year. It's like, why can't you make movies like this anymore?
100 years ago, this was what's your problem?
I was like, oh my god. Like, anyway, so.
We remember you and I walked out of the academy after seeing THX 1138, and I remember one of the first things, if not the first thing, you said was, this makes me respect George Lucas so much more, and I think I feel the same way because it's a way to see. It's Lucas is like a real like visionary, like before. He was just, cranking the prequels out, and he was just kind of known for a horrible dialogue and, just his atrocious work with actors. I mean, the acting is actually good in THX. He did fine with those actors,
And what's weird is that THX and Star Wars are not in the same universe at all. But I saw Episode 4 again before I saw Solo, just because I wanted to see how they introduce Han Solo. But because I saw THX for the first time not long before, I watched Episode 4 a lot differently, and I saw what George Lucas was trying to do as a filmmaker, and Episode 4 is a lot better for me this time after having seen THX.
I think it gives you an appreciation of the attention to detail, the sounds, the textures, the kind of the... I'm a big fan of the early Star Trek films, especially Voyage Home, Wrath of Khan, but it's really stunning when you look at the difference between what those films did and what George Lucas was doing back with THX and Star Wars, and just the greater sophistication, the sounds seem more vibrant, the movements of spaceships and futuristic vehicles seem more dynamic,
See, and when he was making Episode 4, you can argue that George Lucas was still an auteur at that time.
Oh, yeah,
this was pre-Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
And then Lucasfilm happened after that. And it just makes Episode 4 stand out from the rest of them. And one thing that jumped out at me immediately after seeing Episode 4 again was man, this film is hella violent.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I mean, they shoot Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and leave nothing behind but charred skeletons. I mean, that's
over my carcass.
I know.
You have
It's so gory.
You have these insane military Nazis blow up an entire planet in front of her. It's what the hell?
See, it's kind of cool that it was a film with teeth,
Yeah.
But which makes it a little more funny that the MPAA wanted to give it a G rating, and the Star Wars camp were no, kids won't go see it if it's rated G. They'll think it's not cool, They're okay, we'll make it PG, But it's I don't know, it would be PG-13.
Can you imagine the original edit before that influence though?
Yeah.
I bet it would have been darker.
Oh, I'm sure.
But again, going back to my point, seeing Episode 4 again, within that perspective of THX and how Lucas was at that time, man, it's a totally different movie for me.
Totally.
And you just kind of block out, the Lucasfilm machine thing that happened afterwards.
Anything from this year that, or that you saw for the first time that really let you down?
Shit. Do I even want to talk about this?
Well, now you have to.
Who has not seen Isle of Dogs?
I saw it.
I haven't seen Isle of Dogs.
I saw it.
I want to.
Mo and I talked about it a couple months ago on the podcast.
What irritates me is that I can't necessarily call this a bad movie in the traditional sense. It's not terribly done. I just feel, in my opinion, they made a fatal mistake. The shtick that they did, they deliberately did not subtitle the Japanese parts,
Yes.
and I felt that was a
Yes.
mistake.
Yeah.
That
I agree.
it was.
Yeah.
I really wanted to enjoy it. I mean, I'm not a fanboy, but I enjoy Wes Anderson's films. I thought.
I think we
Grand-
all do, right?
Yeah,
Wow,
to
wow.
me,
we're all still living in Portland, right?
I mean,
Touche.
I think once you're like, that's it, I'm done with Wes Anderson, they're like, well, you need to leave. Oh, darn it.
Ouch, done.
I'm going to fast forward my points here a little bit, but I feel like Grand Budapest was peak Wes Anderson. If his next movie does not go in a different direction, I'm done with him. I'm done with him because a lot of again, I wouldn't say Isle of Dogs was a bad movie, but it felt very paint by numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of deliberate because the style, it's animation. The storyboarding has to be done in a very deliberate way because there's like 1 billion people working on that film. It's not like he could just like work off the cuff in a regular live action movie, but it just felt very okay. So this is the part where Wes Anderson does this, and this is the part where Wes Anderson does this. Okay, so a cute character is supposed to come in. There's going to be a plot twist here. It kind of pissed me off, and
So it's too formulaic.
It's a very polarizing film for me. I mean, I love the characters so much, even if some of them are pretty predictable. It's like I really wanted to get lost in the movie, but because they didn't subtitle the Japanese parts, it pulled me out of it again. And the more it did that, the more it pissed me off. It's like, why couldn't you guys get this right the first time around? I mean, I was kind of irritated the first time I saw Dunkirk because I didn't think the shtick was all that necessary. But then after the third viewing, I was like, okay, I get it now. I know what's going on. Who knows? I might change my mind with Isle of Dogs, but I have no appetite to see it again. But I have a far more negative reaction to Isle of Dogs than I ever did with Dunkirk, like 5 times worse. And yeah,
I think with Isle of Dogs, I mean, as we talked about, there are things I like about it. It's very visually beautiful, but there are a lot of things that bother me. Certainly, I do feel, I before I came into it, I thought, maybe it's not necessarily cultural appropriation. Maybe he's just taking inspiration. But I think actually seeing it, I was like, no, this is a pretty serious case of cultural appropriation. And honestly, I was bored by it. I didn't find it entertaining. And that's the one thing about Wes Anderson is like, masterful or mediocre. I feel like his films, like even something like Bottle Rocket, where his style was not fully formed. That's a fun movie. It's spry. It's well paced. It has Owen Wilson being Owen Wilson. Like that. I mean, it's like it's.
That was a good.
Thank you very much. Thanks. That means a lot, man. Yeah.
You did your thing. It was unique but also similar, right?
Well. Dueling Owen Wilson
Tire Match
impersonations.
does a good Owen Wilson, I think. We'll hear it in post.
But Isle of Dogs was one of the.
Was Owen
first
Wilson
ones.
in Isle of Dogs?
I think. Well, actually, I don't know.
Because he's in like all the other ones.
I mean, at least.
I mean,
once.
maybe he had like a cameo.
I mean,
Or vocal cameo.
yeah. I mean, he did in Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and he was teaching Black Bat.
Yeah.
The rules of Black Bat are.
The Whack Bat rules are simple. We don't need to get into them. Right?
it's such a polarizing film for me because on the one hand, I really love the art direction, the animation and everything they did with that, but I hate the production design in general. It pisses me off so much.
Yeah. When I had heard, I told someone, like, oh, Wes Anderson did another stop motion film. Somebody was like, oh, that's weird. And I said, why? And they said, because most people hated working with him on Fantastic Mr. Fox. Because he's like, I want it to look and do this certain thing. And, as you said, you're like, there's 1 billion people working on it. It's like, you can't just be like, yeah, I don't like this. Do it differently. I want you to try this. Like with live people where you're like, oh, let me do that. Like
1,000 man hours.
Exactly. It's like, no, this is the vocal recording. This is what their mouth has to do. we did what you told us to, and that took us 7 days. You want us to spend another 7 days doing this? And so it could be argued that maybe he had to make some compromises artistically or creatively, and therefore lost what...
Probably why the directing felt very paint by numbers to me.
Yeah.
It was irritating.
Which is funny because Fantastic Mr. Fox is so genius.
It's so good.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
I
movie
really
that
loved
it
it.
doesn't
It's
feel
one of
paint
my
by
favorites.
numbers. Yeah, it feels like alive and crazy and, you know, like zany and slapstick. You know, you feel like you're watching a bunch of, you know, foxes, you know, pratfalling and, you know.
Yeah. Well, real quickly, I don't know if you were done. I just wanted to throw out, I thought it was great that you brought up a movie that wasn't released this year that you absolutely loved. Because I just, real quickly, I promise I won't go on too long. I saw Lion in Winter for the first time.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my.
It's really good.
It's amazing. Katharine Hepburn earns that Academy Award. It's like a medieval family drama. I was like, literally, I was sad, I was happy, I was scared, I was stressed out, I was confused, and that could just describe a single scene of that movie. It is so messed up, and if you watch the beginning and like the beginning scene and the end scene, you're like, oh, this is gonna be a fun medieval family rom, and yet it's not. Everybody hates each other, and I don't know what we're arguing about. So, but it's amazing. If you've not seen this movie, give it the time. I would recommend it. I really want to see that T.H.O one.
It was good.
That's so good, yeah. You guys ready for my favorite and not so favorite movie?
Yes.
Go for it.
I'm gonna have to be predictable. My favorite movie of the year is Love, Simon.
What?
Yeah,
Oh my
I
gosh.
didn't.
We almost had it.
Yeah.
Is that the same?
I know. I was, you know, it was kind of like I remember seeing the trailer and like, you know, like just kind of like sneering, like, oh god, it looks so sappy. It looks so like formulaic
It
and
could have been
glossy.
so bad.
And then I went to see it, and I've seen it 3 times now. I've wept every time. I just, you know, I think it's a really beautiful story, and you know, at the risk of, you know, going off on yet another Call Me by Your Name versus Love, Simon tangent like I did before, but it's like, you know, I think, you know, Call Me by Your Name like ended in you know, the same way that a lot of cinematic same-sex romances end. Like, you know, it ends basically tragically.
Just,
you know?
Yeah, you're not happy with it.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, that's a bummer.
It's the same thing, you know.
I mean, nobody dies of AIDS.
Yeah, yeah.
It could have been a lot worse.
But and so I feel like that is like, at least in like mainstream queer cinema, like that's a thing. Like, you know, blue is the warmest color. They don't get together. Brokeback Mountain. He dies, right?
Well, I mean, that's been my why I honestly avoid most queer cinemas, because I'm like, they all fall into the same pratfall. It's either someone doesn't know they're gay and then they find out they're gay. Let's struggle about it.
Yes.
Or someone's
Yes.
gay but falls in love with someone who isn't gay and they can't be gay but they're gonna be gay. Oh no, struggle ensues. Or 2 people are actually in love with each other and someone's gonna die. And like, those are all your queer films, and so it's great to have Love, Simon kind of beat a lot of those tropes, but at the same time, at the very least, like, well, if we're gonna tell a similar queer story, let's do some good and set it in this high school situation. I think you said that John Hughes feel.
Yes, yeah. And I'm not saying those tropes that you're talking about. I mean, I'm really tired of them. That doesn't mean I'm not saying that films with those tropes can't be good, because there have been some good ones. But I do think, you know, it's time to, you know, move beyond that, because like I feel like, you know, gay characters, you know, deserve, you know, like, you know, have like, you know, like romantic movies in the vein of like what Nora Ephron did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for me, like, that's a sign of progress, and I think, you know, you could, you know, level the criticism at Love, Simon, that, you know, it's too mainstream, you know, it's too glossy, it's too slick, and for me, like, that's why I like it. You know, it's a hard on its sleeve crowd pleaser, you know, with you know, trials and, you know, tribulations and triumphs and, you know, a big romantic kiss at the end. You know, it delivers, I think, in a really beautiful and moving way.
I think you could call Me by Your Name just a bunch of beautiful tropes. Like,
yeah,
it's the
I
same
think
tropes you've always seen.
Yeah.
It's just really shiny and it's put in Italy, and who doesn't love Italy? I
Yeah.
haven't been to Italy, and I know I would love Italy.
Yeah, same here.
I watched Under the Tuscan Sun. I would know. Mom movies for the win. But you're right. Love, Simon, I think it's... I would say my only complaint about Love, Simon, it's too stressful. I can't watch it that many times. Like, it's too hard to watch characters make so many bad decisions. You're just like, dude, what are you doing? No, that's not okay. Even if you just none of it. I get very upset about it.
It's an emotional roller coaster ride, and even the stuff that's really beautiful is kind of painful. Like, and you'll know what I'm talking about. The conversation he has with his dad in the driveway. I mean, that's so beautiful, but just like, it tears you apart. It's great.
I mean, I would also. I think there are a lot of, before we get blasted on, there's a lot of queer cinema out there that do try and take the Nora Ephron approach, but there's no visibility, or it's bad. I saw a great description for a movie on Netflix where it was basically a guy comes out to his group of male friends, and he's like, this is it. And they're like, oh, this is weird, but we're going to accept you. And they're like, oh my gosh, no wonder you're not... They all decide that their next goal is to get him a date. They're just like, we're going to help you find a dude. And I was like, that sounded great. Oh, God, the acting in it is so bad. I was like, this idea is so good. I was like, and they just need, more money for those.
That's sad, yeah, because it's like, if that was, done right, that sounds like a compelling and entertaining setup.
I would actually throw out Eat With Me, which was on Netflix for a while, which actually has George Takei in it. And that one actually felt like it doesn't actually have any of the tropes, but it actually deals with more of the Asian... It's about an Asian guy and his mother, and it's a really interesting one. I would just throw it out as well, if you're looking for something that doesn't have all the tropes, but is a fairly decent movie. And even that, just still okay.
The movie from this year that I saw that I want to crap on.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I noticed one thing, when I talk, least favorite movies, even though I see, so many terrible big budget movies, I generally don't, name those ones, because a lot of them, I don't necessarily, expect them to be good anyway. So it's not like a letdown, where it is a letdown when someone like Jason Reitman makes a movie like Tully, which I was so bummed out by. I loved young adult. So I was really excited. Jason Reitman, Charlize Theron, Diablo Cody getting back together. This will be great. This will be a return to form for Reitman. Because have you guys seen the stuff he's done since young adult, Labor Day, Men, Women, and Children? I mean, he went from being so good to being just so laughably bad. Men, Women, and Children. That whole movie is basically this British narrator played by Emma Thompson lecturing a bunch of dumb Americans for spending too much time on their phones. And it's geez, that's the last thing I want. Some very proper sounding narrator from England, telling me I'm a horrible person, because I text or something. It's just, and he's become he's gotten away from entertainment and great storytelling and gotten into this sort of very condescending place, and it just I feel and Tully I think is bad for other reasons. I think it's I think it's safe to talk about the big twist by now, unless
I'm
not gonna see it.
It sounds like nobody's happy with it. And once again, no one's happy with Jason Reitman, which makes me sad.
It's so bad. The twist is Charlize Theron's character hires a night nanny played by Mackenzie Davis to look after her kids while she gets some sleep. They have this really interesting, really compelling relationship, and turns out at the end the night nanny was never there. She was Charlize Theron's imagined version of her younger self, dude. And it's just it's funny. I listened to Jason Reitman being interviewed about this.
Great twist.
Yeah, it's not, and he described it in such a thoughtful way, and I was like, wow, he actually really thought this through, and really had interesting thoughts about why he did that and why he wanted that to be the way it was. But it just didn't work for me. I felt like I was being manipulated and played, and not in a good way.
It sounds like that sounds like an episode of a TV show.
It does. It does.
The plot itself. That
sounds like a Twilight Zone episode.
It does.
Yeah.
And the other thing is he said in this interview, I like the idea of a woman having a conversation with her younger self, and when you put it like that, I think that's really interesting. What I don't think is interesting is setting up this relationship that we invest in, that we care about, and then, you know, giving us whiplash at the end by like, psych, you were wrong. You know, like it gives the impression, and I'm sure this isn't how he meant it, but it gives the impression of a filmmaker who like takes pride in the fact that he believes he's superior to the audience. You know, and just I felt like I was being smacked over the head with cleverness, and I felt insulted, to be honest.
It's such a shame because I think Reitman's real. Maybe this is the thing. I know I was trying to think. I was like, Reitman actually has one. When we did a top 10 movie list, one of his movies is on my list.
Isn't Up in the Air your favorite?
Oh,
movie?
there's two of them. I forgot. Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking are both on my list. And honestly, I prefer, if you were to make me pick one, Thank You for Smoking. And I think what he does well with both of those movies is, and Young Adult, is taking these people you shouldn't like,
yes,
that you look at and you go, oh, I don't want to like you. And yet, over the course of however long, he makes you want to like them. He makes you want them to succeed. You want George Clooney to find happiness, and you're sad that he doesn't.
Yeah,
but you're also, and you want... I mean, I think Juno is probably his happiest character.
Yeah.
Like, she's the most likable character.
She's not, like... this is a tangent. Because I also enjoy the cinema of Jason Reitman, and Juno was a huge part of... maybe not a huge part, but I really liked it in high school.
Yeah, I saw it in high school too. Yeah, it made an incredible impact on me.
She's not unlikable as a character. She's not really an outcast. She's just kind of off.
Yeah,
like they
different.
They pitch her as being like nonconformist, but there's not really anything beyond like she doesn't go out for sports.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I think, and actually, I think that
and
Diablo,
she's kind of a music snob.
Well, and Diablo Cody really makes a great point when she talks about like how jocks like see her. Like, the thing about alternative and indie, when she's like, you know, and then she describes the perfect girl, and it's like horn rim glasses, and like into this or whatever, and it's like she goes, and that's not even her, like, in a little bit. Like, so, and I think that's kind of good, as like, she goes, even as an outcast, she doesn't really fit that mold, like, but she's a likable character, and so...
Well, you want to follow these characters on these journeys, you fall in love with them because, you know, you get behind their emotional armor, and you see their heart, you know, you see her, you know, longing for connection, and Up in the Air you see the same thing from George Clooney, and there was something, like, very beautiful about the idea of this guy who was so cynical and so materialistic that he could, you know, yearn for something more, and that's, you know, a very moving idea, that's a very entertaining idea, and it just, that doesn't feel there in the newer stuff.
Like, at the beginning, the whole point is he's like, we can't change, nothing can change, I don't want this to change.
Yeah.
And then... he slowly, surely discovers that maybe change is necessary. Change doesn't have to be bad, and even he recognizes that he tries to experience change and it kind of fucks him over. But he still goes, "All right, I'm gonna try anyways." Like he realizes that even trying to change and getting hurt will be better than not changing at all. And I think that's beautiful. So, but the point of this was that he writes these characters that you don't want to like, that you ultimately kind of like, and you kind of hope, good things will happen to them.
Yeah,
you
root for them.
It kind of sets you on the opposite side and brings you to their side, and that's impressive. And I think maybe that's like his goal, and he's just like, I'm going to do that. And he goes, and I'm going to focus, I'm going to zero in right on that. And he's like, before it was like, this is the idea, and he had all the ideas formed around it. I think he's now like, basically building his world around a character that's unlikable, and I think that might be what's causing the issue. I don't know. It's sad though, because I do love him so much.
I love him too, and I think every great filmmaker can only survive if they take risks. You know, you can't repeat the same thing over and over again. And he is trying to branch out. His first 4 movies, I would say, were sort of maybe dramatic comedies or dramedies, whatever you wanted to call it, and he's increasingly trying to get into, like purer drama, and I think that's valid. He's trying to push himself, but he's pushing himself in the wrong direction. He's not made for that. He needs to he needs to find a way to push himself, but get back in his comfort zone a little bit. doing this movie that's coming out this fall with Hugh Jackman as Gary Hart. You know, obviously that's going to be a serious story, but you know, it's a little bit funny too. You know, as well, because it's a bit of that whole thing was a bit of a shit show. So my hope is that will return to familiar ground.
I think it's just going to be interesting, that movie coming out, because it's a political scandal for a presidential candidate, and it's like, remember when that can happen? When a scandal can derail someone's political career?
Oh, it seems like such a quaint era now.
Just one scandal.
Yeah,
it can be done.
And that was
We should we should probably wrap this particular part up soon. I think so, since we've gone for a bit on this, we'll have to save most of our listener questions for part 2 of all this.
Yeah.
But I thought we'd do one of the quicker ones.
okay.
So it's from Arthur O'Reilly, and it's
So if you're wondering what a questions video sounds like, it's going to be kind of like this, which will make you want to go listen to it. I promise.
This is your teaser.
Yeah, this is your teaser.
This is a free sample.
This is just a taste.
coming out of SDCC. What movies are you particularly excited for? I just want to use this excuse to say, a war is coming to the surface, and I'm bringing the wrath of the 7 seas. And no, that's not my way of saying I'm excited for Aquaman, because, sorry Aquaman, that trailer was only fun in the sense that it was fun to laugh at.
I'm still curious about Aquaman.
I'm curious too. I'm morbidly curious, but
I've never
curious
seen what an
nonetheless.
Aquaman movie looks like. I want to know what that looks like. It's probably not going to be good, but sure, I'll see. I'll check it out.
My only hope and wish for the Aquaman movie is that Aquaman is at least a little cool. Like, cause that's been the whole thing. Is everyone's like, Aquaman's lame. And I just hope he's cool. If even if the movie's bad, if they're like, oh man, everything was a mess, but he was kind of cool and badass at times. You're like that would be like, no wonder people don't fuck with Aquaman. You're like,
That's
just
funny.
an underdog situation.
That's funny, given the second from one of the trailers when he says, "This is badass."
Oh.
And so
I have a feeling my wish is not going to come
I think
true.
they're going in the direction. That,
I mean, he did tell me it was badass, so I guess.
And he also says, "That was awesome." And I love it how editorializing
He's
trailers.
Aqua Bro.
You know, yeah, it's Aqua Bro.
Bro.
Yeah.
Ugh. I hate that I find him so attractive. It's just like, God, I know you're just a pretty face, and I would want to separate it, but I can't. I would go with Glass.
That looked great.
Only because I literally, a few days ago, just saw Unbreakable. I loved it. That thing was good. It was a really great movie. I see why everyone's angry at M. Night Shyamalan. Well, it sounds like everybody feels about M. Night Shyamalan how I feel about Tomb Raider.
Patrick, anything out of Comic-Con intrigue you?
We're talking about Comic-Con in specific?
Yeah.
I haven't really seen the announcements at Comic-Con. I mean, just like Aquaman, but I wasn't too impressed with that. So no, I don't have a selection from Comic-Con, but I have a bunch of movies that I'm looking forward to.
Did you see the Glass trailer?
Yes, I did. It looks interesting, but I haven't seen the other one.
Split.
I haven't seen Split, so I have to see. I feel like I have to see Split before I can jump into Glass. But Glass looks really interesting. I'd like to see Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis jump back into those characters. That would be interesting.
Yeah. I think it'll be. I still need to also see Split.
Yeah.
Mo.
For me, Shazam actually looks fun. I'm cautiously optimistic about that one. But they're at the very least they're thinking okay, this is a story about a kid who turns into a grown-up superhero. We cannot do this dark and gritty.
Yeah.
You can't have the fuck Batman moment, for lack of a better term.
And for those of you who don't know, you're referring to the Titans TV show.
I'm gonna enjoy crapping on that show.
Where's Batman? Fuck Batman.
That was a thing that happened. They put that in the trailer. They were so proud of that moment. But the other one is Cutthroat City, which is the RZA directing a heist movie set in post-Katrina New Orleans.
Ooh,
I'll watch it.
It's got a hell of a cast. I know Terrence Howard is there.
I mean,
I'm gonna.
I know. What was it? The Man with the Golden Fist.
The man with the iron.
Man
Fist.
with the Iron Fist. I mean, the movie itself was fairly mediocre, but stylistically, it was a really pretty film. And I was also I'm always there for Lucy Liu. I will support her.
Well,
I just like her. Okay.
She's great.
Did you
She's
say that
awesome.
was a heist movie?
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Speaking of a heist movie, have you guys seen the trailer for McQueen's new one?
Yes!
Which
Doesn't that look good?
Amazing.
Yes!
Oh, Widows.
Shit.
Widows.
Yeah.
What?
You haven't seen the trailer for that?
No,
Oh, you're gonna love it.
It's,
I haven't.
It's the better version of Ocean's 8 is what it looks like, where like 4 widows of criminals decide to pull off the heist their husbands were planning to do. And it's like, who is it?
Viola Davis,
Elizabeth Debicki,
Michelle Rodriguez.
What?
I forget who the 4th one is, and I feel bad about it, and I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. We're apparently gonna watch the.
Daniel Kaluuya plays the villain. He's
Unlike
villain.
Aquaman, Widows actually looks badass.
Yeah.
And did they once tell you that it was gonna be badass?
No, that's what was so
Well,
badass
how are we
about
supposed
it.
to know?
It just was badass.
It's very low key badass.
Yeah.
So wait,
Yeah.
what was this movie called? That your
Cutthroat City.
Cutthroat City.
I'm trying to find the cast list for it, and Wikipedia is not being helpful.
I
so
mean,
I'm gonna
I
go
also
with that
got
shit.
really excited for the Steven Universe movie, but
Yeah.
that's the TV show, and I'm just obsessed, and I cry a lot when I watch
What are
it.
they gonna do? Where is the story gonna go? Okay, neither of you watch this show.
We will talk about this off
Yes.
off phone. We will not be a part of this.
Well, I think that's a good note to wrap things
Wait,
up.
I'm at
more
IMDb.
Cutthroat City.
I've got the cast list. As soon as my phone loads, come on. Here we go.
Ooh,
Okay, so what do we?
Just kidding.
You're not helpful. We got Kat Graham, we got Asa Gonzalez, Wesley Snipes, Tip T.I. Harris, Terrence Howard, Joel David Miller, Isaiah Washington, Demetrius Shipp, Denzel Whitaker, Shameik Moore. Shameik Moore's in this. I love that dude.
guy.
Rob
And
Morgan.
he's Spider-Man in
He
Spider-Man
is.
Into the Spider-Verse.
That's
right?
also one that I'm really looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's the cast list. That's an amazing group of people right there.
Already, yeah.
So that's gonna be at least interesting.
The very least.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to leave it there for now. If you like this podcast, please click thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at T.H.O Movie Reviews. And please check out all the great reviews and content we have at thomoviereviews.wordpress.com. If you want to see us answer more questions, check out our forthcoming Questions podcast.
Ooh.
And once again, I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, here with Maxwell Meyers, Mo Shaunette, Patrick Belin, and from all of us here at T.H.O Movie Reviews. I'm trying to think of a good Aquaman quote to round things off, but none are coming to mind.
Outrageous.
Outrageous.
That was his catchphrase on one of the cartoons.
Outrageous.
Oh boy.
And wait till the next podcast when we talk to fish.
Oh.